Hello everyone, it is Marjoram of Sage and Marjoram back with another video. But today we're going to be talking about some knitting. I am enrolled in School of Sweet Georgia and we are working through a lace mastery study group right now, led by Tabetha Hedrick, so I figured I would talk about that. And you'll have to forgive me because I recorded this earlier, so I might not necessarily be commenting on what's happening on screen, but I will chime in from time to time. I just want to talk about what I'm doing. So I think I'm showing off here. I have huge hands. And so working immediately with small needles is not easy for me. So I decided I wanted to test just my skills in general. And so I started this on the first day, actually, of the knitting study group. And I just wanted to knit, so I knit with some bigger needles. Those were US 10.5, I believe. And this is a simple pattern. It's 4 rows, and then it just repeats. It's 3 rows of knit purl knit, or purl knit purl, and then there is a pattern row. So I've been really enjoying the study group for the same reason that I enjoyed the knitting study group. Sorry, the weaving study group. I like the camaraderie and knowing that other people are doing the same thing, and there's a group that if you want to, you can go and ask questions. I really like to observe as well, so I like seeing what other people are doing, and sometimes your questions are answered before you even have them because folks are working on similar things or the exact same pattern. So this is just a pattern that I found on my own when I was trying to decide what knitting style I was going to use, which is another topic I'll get to in a minute. My knitting style has changed for circular needles specifically, but there's someone in the study group who's working this exact pattern that I am working on right now. They've actually finished one, and I think they might be working on another. I've seen a couple of folks who are working on this. This is the Tulsi hat by Tabetha Hedrick. I'm working it in this merino silk mix. You all have seen me use this on my looms, but I had one skein of this kind of army moss green left over, and I have a little bit of a different color left over somewhere, just in case I run out. But yeah, so I knit this flat, as you can see, for the first 5 rows, just for the ribbing, because I had a lot of trouble joining my knitting that early. I am a tight knitter as well, so my cast on was kind of tight. It was a long tail cast on, but it was tight for me. Like the first couple of rows, whenever I knit, no matter what, are always the hardest and the slowest, and then after that I'm fine. But I think it evened out pretty well after doing that, and then I just joined at the first lace row, which is why I have that pin there, because it is a little bit looser there. So I'm showing you, this is just one repeat of the pattern, and later on in the video I'll have a look at 2 repeats done. But yeah, you can see right here, like right above the join, there's actually a lace section, a pretty open section right there. So I pinned it just so that I had it not moving too much when I was going in the round for the first couple of rows. And then I'll just sew up that little open section with that tail that I left. Just enough to weave it in. But I've really enjoyed the study group so far. I'm just going to chat about it and chime in when I can. I have learned a lot about my knitting style. I have changed knitting styles a couple of times, but for this one I'm doing kind of a mirror throwing. So this is the pattern. It's the Tulsi by Tabetha Hedrick, like I mentioned. If you are in School of Sweet Georgia, it's in the Become a Lace Knitter workbook. That's where you can get that pattern. And I'm actually working it on cards rather than reading the pattern. I'll show you later on. I'm using little cards just with each section written out, so I can just move the card and I know at a glance what I'm working on. But yeah, I had to change my knitting style because I'm used to knitting on straight needles. It's not the right way to think, but I've always thought crocheting is more flexible than knitting. I think that they're both flexible, but with crocheting, I feel like I have much more control because there is only one variable, the one crochet hook. Whereas here I have 2 needles moving and the yarn is strapped between them, and I need to keep that hook there, or sorry, I need to keep that needle there. See, I'm thinking about crocheting because I love crocheting. I need to keep those needles there or else the whole thing will unravel. With crocheting, I have one stitch or maybe two on my hook at once. And even if I drop it, I can just take out a couple of stitches and I'm fine. There's like no pressure with crocheting, and yet I feel like I can get some pretty great lace and some pretty different stitches. I've even done cabling with crocheting, but knitting is just different. Knitting, I'm comfortable knitting flat. I'm comfortable double knitting flat even, but I've always struggled with circular needles, and it's because of the way I knit. I have discovered a lot about myself in the first 2 weeks of the knitting group. We're in week 3 right now, but the first 2 weeks I was really doing a lot of swatching and practicing because I realized I mirror knit. I knit continental from right to left because I'm left-handed, but I wanted to try knitting left to right for this. So I have a pair of needles where I have some continental left to right work going just on the side. I also did continental, that first one that I just showed you, I was knitting continental mirror, right to left. But what I've discovered, and I'll show you in a minute here, is I much more enjoy knitting mirror throwing. It's actually faster and more comfortable on circulars for me to have the working yarn in the same hand as the working needle. It'll look slow here just because I'm showing the camera, but I'm actually able to knit fairly quickly for me, with the working yarn in the same hand as the working needle. So working from right to left with the yarn in my left hand as well. I was surprised by that. I guess I do what is called Irish cottage style or lever knitting. So I always parked one of my needles actually in my belt. I know a lot of people park them like under their arm or just hold it in place really firmly, but I always parked a needle in my belt loop. It was pretty easy, and I think it gave me the same control that I prefer with crocheting, and I'm able to knit really quickly that way. I could knit a scarf in an hour and a half or 2 hours. I've knit other things like blankets or blocks for bigger projects really quickly with that method, but I found it's most comfortable for me when I'm knitting where I have to have both needles in my hand to have that yarn in the same hand as the working needle. I also realized I'm a very tight knitter, and I also tension my yarn oddly. You'll see here. I wrap around my forefingers and then I wrap around my pointer. So it goes like around my palm. And it's kind of hard to explain, but it feels right. That's what I've been trying to go by for this whole study group, is what feels right. So that lets me feel the tension throughout my whole hand, and I can tell if I have too much. I can, release one of the wraps on my fingers. I can also kind of grab, you can see like my pinky is holding onto that yarn a little bit back there because this is a slippery yarn, so it just feels right doing it that way. So this is the way I'm knitting. I'm knitting from right to left, throwing around the back of the needle. And that's what's working for me. So I'm really enjoying the study group. I'm hoping to finish this one pretty soon, and then I will go on and start something different because Sweet Georgia is starting a spring lace along, and it starts on April 4th, which at the time of recording is tomorrow. So you have to cast on after that date. But I think I can finish this one fairly soon and then cast on something different. I'm looking at some of the bias knit shawls that they have, but I'm also interested in some of my old patterns from Ravelry. I have some mini patterns to look at. I've tried socks before and they've come out just not good. So maybe I'll go back. I'm feeling much more confident about my knitting, even just 2.5, 3 weeks in to the course. I'm really liking it. I'm really liking this hat as well. I'm showing, I messed up the ribbing, I will say that. It's supposed to be a twisted rib, and I did just a regular 1-1 rib. I do think twisted ribbing looks a little bit cleaner, but I wasn't going to frog the whole thing just to twist the stitch. I think it's okay, and it's still functional ribbing. So here I am, I was just knitting along. One thing with these needles, they are wood, and they are kind of blunt, so you'll see here, it takes me like a bit of extra work to get a slip knit done, an SSK. Knit two together, no problems, just an SSK. But I don't have that many circular needles because I don't really knit on them that often. Even after almost 20 years of knitting, I just prefer really long bamboo straight needles. Okay, so just a quick look. This is what 2 repeats of the lace look like. And I'm getting around just under an inch per lace section, so per 8 rows of lace. Unblocked, I'm getting around an inch, a little less. So I think I'll be able to finish this pretty quickly. And I'll post another video when I do, with my thoughts on, you know, finishing this pattern, how I'm feeling about lace at that point. I'm feeling confident now, but I want to see, you know, how much better I can get just in this one pattern. I already feel like I could do any lace pattern now. It might take me a while, but I feel like I could do any lace pattern now. Yeah. So I hope you all are enjoying your time. I'm still working on weaving. I am working on some overshot coming up soon. I can't for the life of me find this one overshot draft. I know the name, I've seen so many people do it, and I can't find the draft. I'm looking through all of my weaving materials. I have a couple of weaving books as PDFs, and I also have a couple of physical books that I'm trying to go through, and I'm like, I know I have it in one of them. It's just there's so many patterns, so many drafts to look through. So that will be coming up next for my weaving. I do have some other videos that I need to edit and get through, but I'm in this study group right now, so I need to get that out. Starting in May is the tapestry study group, so I actually pulled out my tapestry loom early. I have to make sure I have everything. I know I have these things somewhere in my storage from many, many years ago. Okay, thank you all for joining me. I hope you all have a great week, and I will talk to you sometime soon. Bye-bye.